With the Toronto District School Board, and I have the pleasure of being the facilitator for this wonderful session called A Deep Dive in Water Education for Action. And our presenters are from GreenUP. So let's just start with the land acknowledgement first, and then I'll pass it over to them. We acknowledge the traditional territory upon which the conference is being hosted. For many thousands of years, the Huron-Wendat and Petun First Nations, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, the Seneca, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit have sought to walk gently on this land. This territory is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit, as well as by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe and allied nations to peacefully share and care for the lands and resources around the Great Lakes. This acknowledgement signals our desire to seek a new relationship with the original peoples of this land, one based on honor and deep respect, and is a starting point to remind us all to enact this work in our personal and professional lives. So this session will go from 4:30 to 5:30, and with us, as I mentioned before, we have two incredible presenters, Karen and Heather, and they promised me that they would introduce themselves. I'm just going to tell you that they've already proved themselves intelligent, humorous, warm and welcoming, and I know we'll have a good session with them. So over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Pam, and thank you for everyone for joining us. We will get to who we are, but first we wanted to just give you a bit of a recap as to what we're going to talk about today to set your expectations of how we're moving forward. So we have a bit of our own land acknowledging the land that we are currently coming to you on. Talking a little bit about who we are, what the program is all about. We want to share a lot of celebrations with you. And we may also ask you to do a little interactiveness. So if you haven't yet gotten a beautiful glass of water next to you, please feel free to take a moment to grab a glass or a bottle or some sort of beverage close by, because water is important. We'll ask you to interact with that at some point too. To help you, before we dive in, we want to just express that you have our full permission to share questions and thoughts throughout our presentation in the chat. That distraction will not throw us off our game, so not to worry about that. We will have checkpoints throughout to kind of address and talk about some things if you feel like it's something really pertinent to the conversation that we're having at hand. And then of course, open for questions at the end. So if you want to even just jot down your own questions and save them for the end, that's also okay. Whatever your style is, we can roll with. We will be kind of zooming in and out about the role of water and education and the role that we've played in it throughout the presentation. So sit back and enjoy as we share a little bit more about the work that we've been working on. And Karen is our slide keeper, and Karen is going to provide a land acknowledgement from the land that we come from.
Wonderful. And even before that, I wanted to start with this very significant picture for us, which was actually our World Water Day celebration that, if you can imagine, happened on the Thursday that we all got the news that everything was shutting down. And so this is just moments before students got on a bus. We were actually in the midst of a sacred water ceremony with Elder Dorothy Taylor. Just so you can visualize that our program was very much more intimate and interactive before the current state. And this is our land acknowledgement with gratitude to COIO for a really strong model that they've provided. It says, we acknowledge that in Nogojibanong, Treaty 20, where GreenUP has the privilege to work, we are on land and benefit from resources from many nations that are not paid and that government and private businesses are continuing to try to negotiate to possess without good faith. We acknowledge that local nations struggle from conditions such as environmental racism, lack of clean water resources, and lack of clean resources, as well as underfunding that does not give them equal footing for advancement. We're building relationships with culture by first being accountable to the nation, and that we will not include content or teaching of any nation without their presence or their permission at our presentation. So that to say, especially that when you do see really important teachings and content within our presentation today, we've gotten very explicit permissions to use those. We're building relationships with people from the culture by talking with and giving space to elders and knowledge keepers to share what they feel is appropriate with a predominantly non-Native organization. We encourage everyone here, and we are so, so glad that you're here, to find your local nation for your own land acknowledgement, but also to push past that, to start building relationships and leaving space to better your teaching, living, working, and playing on the land that you acknowledge. And to bring that acknowledgement even closer in to the context of the work that we do, this is a poster that my colleague Matthew and I created at a summer day camp at Curve Lake, which is just a short distance north of Nguojuwanong, Peterborough. These young people deeply understand the need for water. You can see very clearly in how they've identified no living without water, water is life, and all of their beautiful art. And yet, this is a nation that for the past 100 years has lived with very inconsistent or with a lack of safe and potable water. And so we want to make clear that we grapple very much and locally with this tension. And we also wanted to acknowledge that both Heather and I are on our own journey of grappling with this, and also looking at respectful ways to bring it into the classroom. And I'm sure, as with many of you, and as it's mandated by the provincial government, are hearing land acknowledgements over the PA system daily, and are finding perhaps a bit of a disconnect between what students are hearing and what they're processing. So this, and I'm going to courageously stop and see if I can invite folks to share their screens if you're willing, just so that we can actually see you as we do this part. And again, full recognition that it's late on a Friday. And so if you're really feeling camera shy, I will not be offended. But if you do feel comfy to turn on your screen, we'd be really grateful. Oh, thanks, Peggy. Hi, Emily. Wonderful. And so one of the things that we do with students as we're acknowledging the land is to try and weave in both their personal connection and then also to weave in some of the local places, such as the place that we find ourselves on, and local water courses, and to kind of weave in the meaning for them. And this is a rhyme that you've probably heard, and I promise I did not make it up. And I am exploring the origins of it. But what I'll do is I'll say it, and you don't even need to turn your mics on, but feel free to repeat after me. And you might smile because you might have heard this before. So you're going to touch whatever land, if it's beneath your carpet, if it's the land in your bones, and you're going to say, here is the land.
Here is the land.
And here is the sky. And you're going to just put a little turbulence into the air there.
Here is the sky.
Here are my friends.
Here are my friends.
And here am I.
And here am I.
Water, land.
Water, land.
Water in sky.
Water and sky.
You're made of water.
You're made of water.
and so am I.
And so am I.
Now, this is where we get specific. So where our local water comes from is called the autonomy, that's anglicized for Odanabe, or the water that beats like a heart. So this next part, we say the Odanabe is a river in me.
Is a river in me.
Navojawanong is the place I call home.
Is the place I call home.
So that's one way that we both get students comfortable and familiar, connecting with the source of the water that is our life, even if they have that disconnect because it's coming from a tap, but then also to get them practicing. And I loved Christy's expression that she just used of like marbles in the mouth, of really carefully practicing and pronouncing these words. I'm going to share my screen again. And thank you for doing that with me. And thanks for turning your screens on if it felt comfortable, because the pitter patter of my heart is really helped by your smiles there. So we promised we'd introduce ourselves, and my name is Karen. I am an educator with Wonders of Water, and I have been an environmental educator for almost 20 years, doing a variety of roles, including another WOW program, the Watershed on Wheels program in Toronto, as an eco schools. They used to call us auditors, and I think now they call them assessors. And as an OCT trained teacher, also in classrooms, and also with the enormous privilege of teaching environmental education through not-for-profit charities. I am so grateful to do this work, and my entire experience is enormously deepened by the fact that I'm also a mom of two who really keep me accountable to this work. Heather, over to you.
Thank you, Karen. So my name is Heather. I'm a director of programs here at GreenUP, and I'm also a green infrastructure enthusiast. And my background is not in education, so I hold an environmental resource management honors degree and a master's in international public policy, specializing in environmental policy. And somehow I found myself working for the last decade and a half with not-for-profits, and I'm loving every minute of it, that it provides this opportunity to really kind of find these gaps that we have within our community and our worlds, and work collaboratively with so many different people to help fill those gaps. So I am happy to be here today. And when it comes to this program, I was the solo water programs coordinator at GreenUP for a couple of years, and also the coordinator of the Peterborough Children's Water Festival. So I'm one of the program creators, and then just help to oversee the program and learn from these wonderful people such as Karen about more specifics. Karen, do you mind switching the screen? These are some of the other beautiful faces that have worked with us on the WOW program. So we would be amiss if we didn't also acknowledge their role. A few faces that are missing are our executive director and our communications manager as well, who's a huge part of the work that we do. And so this is Brittany, Jamie, Matthew, and Jen, all who played a role in helping to build this program and make it what it is. Next slide. We would also be amiss if we did not acknowledge that we did not create everything from scratch. And so the education that we offered to our community when it came to water definitely was borrowed from some larger policy documents like Acting Today, Shaping Tomorrow, which we'll talk about a little bit more, Project WET, Natural Curiosity, all of those big and wonderful resources that we all know well. We also linked into a lot of local giants. So Evergreen, which is a GTA organization, helped us a lot. And then local We Are Water with Nourish is a wonderful water curriculum that is free to access online. Anyone can find that from their website. And also partners from our water festival, such as Peterborough Utilities, Tracks, and Autonomy Conservation and Green Communities Canada. We borrowed the basis and the foundation of our work from them. So thank you to them.
So as Heather said, we wanted to do some zooming out and some zooming in. And fortunately, COVID gave us this enormous privilege of being able to really capture some of the voices and perspectives that we might not otherwise be able to bring to a conference like this. So attempting to coordinate a water festival last year, we also had the privilege of incorporating the Wonders of Water program and some peer-to-peer learning there. This video was able to capture some of that peer-to-peer and wider stakeholder learning about one of the really unique parts of our program, which is actually called a schoolyard or school infrastructure retrofit. And because I've had the enormous privilege of doing some professional development with natural curiosity, I've gained this rich language and a little bit more praxis for actually talking about some of the aspects of this project. And so one of the conceptual framings that I absolutely love is looking at this retrofit and talking about how does it provide opportunities for relational agency, for really embodied well-being, and for active hands in the dirt hope. And this conceptual framework was offered by one of the mentors, Maria Van Vallis, and I'm really, really grateful for both that professional development, but also this framing of what we've been doing with our program, or really attempting to do for this past 3 years. And to take it a step further, we would love, as you're watching this 7-minute video, if you can tease out some of these examples of relational agency. Where do you see it? Embodied well-being and active hope. What does it look like and what does it feel like? Both as you're watching and through the lens of all of these various participants. So I'm going to pop on the video. It's about 7 minutes, and feel free to do whatever you need to do while you're watching it. If you need to stretch, if you need to go and grab a glass of water. And also, please feel free to light up the chat with what you're seeing and thinking and feeling. And if by chance the volume doesn't go on, I might have to share in a different way. Just going to make sure. Let's see. And Heather, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear it? Okay. Sorry, folks, I thought that might happen. I just didn't see when I asked if I could screen share where it told me the volume was. So I'm going to look for that again. Here we go. There it is. Perfect. It is Friday, isn't it? Here we go.
Ishkakamekwe, Mother Earth. You know, she gives us everything that we need: food, shelter, medicine, the very water that falls from the sky. It's that water that gives life to all life. No life begins, no life can live without that water we call Gitchitwanabe.
I'm standing here on the site of a deep learning water retrofit. The Wonders of Water program is a 3-year grant born out of the magic of the Peterborough Children's Water Festival. It takes the injection of hands-on learning and fun from the Water Festival and extends it from junior kindergarten all the way to grade 8 within schools where Students are really understanding in rich ways their deep connection and love of water.
You learn so much from just this small little thing called water.
We always start with connection and understanding to where our water comes from in Peterborough, the Otonabee River. We weave that understanding with a relationship of where water comes from, how we use it, and where the water goes. Students here at St. Anne's have taken a small corner of their yard, a corner that actually had significant drainage issues, and they've transformed it into a learning laboratory with both pollinator gardens, a rich arboretum of native species, and a rain garden to address the drainage issues. They've also created an educational space where students and teachers can learn about the natural environment.
Over the course of the year, representatives from GreenUP were coming into my classroom to educate my students on what we were going to be doing, with the goal of empowering them and giving them enough knowledge to be able to take the project and make it their own. To do that, what we did was we worked to cultivate a sense of appreciation for nature and for water, so that they feel this sense of ownership and stewardship over this ecosystem that we're building out back.
I just thought, oh, it's another project that I'm gonna do, and it's gonna be a great experience. And it turned into so much more than an experience. It's like a lifetime worth of learning. And now, I can 100% say I'm a plant nerd. I love plants. It's just so fascinating. And then we really took the project into action.
My name's Terrence Radford. I'm the landscape architect. I had the pleasure of working with St. Anne's School to develop this lovely new naturalized area and series of rain gardens. So what we did was excavated 3 garden beds that have a slight depression in them so that they'll actually stop and slow the water, and this area that naturally ponded will actually infiltrate into the ground. Once we plant the vegetation, the roots of that vegetation will actually increase the infiltration rate and allow us to absorb more water into the ground and back into the water table before it travels to the end and goes into the existing catch basin. But this project's actually going to do an amazing amount to actually stop water, infiltrate it, and soak it back into the groundwater to help our adjacent watershed and stop peak flows that we get after rain events or when we get our spring melt that are very damaging to our local creeks and water systems.
So when I just started putting that first tree in the ground, it felt, all right, we're doing this. It felt like a huge accomplishment, huge weight lifted off all of our chests. And then once you do the first tree, you're like, I'll do another tree. So it just goes on until we run out of trees and everyone's like, wait, are we done yet? I want to plant more trees. And it's amazing.
This is a palpable way that we can have kids learn on school property in a natural environment while providing an environmentally sustainable project and space for them to learn in every day.
The leadership students managed to put over 400 species of native trees, plants, and shrubs into this beautiful space, not only to support the draining challenges by creating rain garden cells, but also to support species at risk within the local area.
When we build houses and schools, we're chopping down trees and destroying ecosystems, but this time we rebuilt an ecosystem and it was really nice, and now there's like a new little place that you can go to and it's really beautiful. I kind of like school a lot better now. School's just a lot more fun when you actually get to go outside and play around a lot.
For children to be able to have an opportunity to change their playground and to change the school that they spend so many of their formative years is a gift not just for themselves, but for their community. The local students that I worked with at 2 of the schools here in Peterborough really got engaged with both local and international issues around water, and after they learned a bit more and worked on their retrofits, they actually went to the local Peterborough Children's Water Festival where they created their own activities to talk about water and pass on their knowledge to local students.
It's the joy on the children's faces that they see and how they can make an impact and how small little things can really influence the decisions that adults can make, and they feel empowered. And so this program is able to provide those opportunities for students.
If we could, I would write everyone's name who was part of this project on one tree. But the problem is we don't have a tree that's big enough for that yet. So in 20 years, maybe I'll just come by and, implant my legacy then. So everyone knew that we planted this garden, and the legacy is really amazing. It's gonna stand for a long, long time with everything that's happened here.
We have been trying to teach the younger kids how to take care of this garden. The kindergartners and like the grade ones, they're the future of our school. So when we're leaving, which is in only a couple years, we're gonna have to have someone to take care of this garden.
There is hope for the future. It's been my experience working with the young people that we will bring balance back to the world. And it's you young people of the 7th generation who are going to make that magic happen. And us older people, we'll pray for you, support you, and encourage the work that you do. I'm going to end with the song. It says, water, I love you. Water, I thank you. Water, I respect you. Nepe kisakego kimi kwachawen nemego kishawen nemego miigwach nepe kisakego kimi kwachawen nemego kishawen nemego.
Thank you so much for watching that with us. It really does for us feel like a celebratory moment of and kind of like a culminating film for what has been a 3-year journey for us. And so we wanted to celebrate that with you, and we also wanted to hear from you. And I'm just going to scroll up in the chat. So Maggie, I see you said, is this video available on YouTube? It absolutely is through GreenUP, our YouTube channel, and we will share that. And then there's Heather. Heather, thank you, has already put it up there for us. Pam says, relational agency, plant nerds. Absolutely love this guy. Could not really, truly have picked more articulate, passionate students to record. Kathy as well says, I'm a plant nerd, love it. Pam, rebuilding ecosystems is active hope, and we completely agree. Learning about these things and actively being able to support them in the place where you work and play is vital. Gigi says, relational kids, I'm guessing kids are the future. Absolutely. And Gigi, good to see you. And Maggie says, thanks, exclamation mark. And we are so, so thankful to have had these opportunities. Heather's going to talk now about the umbrella organization, because this isn't all that our environmental charity does. And she's going to talk a little bit more about that. As I skip to the next slide, the video is probably going to start again. And then Heather, it will go over to you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Karen. Thank you for everyone for participating in the chat. It was lovely to see your engagement. Yeah, so zooming out a little bit more, it was a beautiful summary of the project and the program that we've spent the last 3 years working on. And who are we? What is GreenUP and why are we doing this? So we have been around for almost 30 years. We have been Central and Eastern Ontario's leading organization focused on issues of community resilience and sustainability. We are a not-for-profit charitable organization, and our mission is to inspire and empower environmentally healthy and sustainable action in our community. Next slide. We narrow that down into kind of 3 main things to remember. When you think about GreenUP, you could think about that we teach, we act, and we engage. So we offer impactful hands-on environmental education programs. We lead inspiring restoration and renewal projects that demonstrate the potential for green, healthy, and active neighborhoods. And we coordinate engaging events and campaigns that enable collaborative action, which is collaboration is very important to us. And so some of the programs that we work on outside of this program that we're sharing with you today are things for climate action, active transportation. We like to get kids and adults on bikes. We work with co-design and participatory planning elements, water and energy conservation programs, waste reduction. We do a lot of green infrastructure and landscape naturalization, local food production, and some sustainable business programs as well. Next slide. So we are on a number of collaborative boards and initiatives. And one of them is the Peterborough Children's Water Festival, which actually started in 2002. So it's been around quite a while as well. And the Peterborough Children's Water Festival is a community event. It happens annually over 2 to 3 days, where grades 2 to 5 come join us at the zoo, where we provide students with the opportunity to discover the importance and diversity of water through hands-on activity centers. It's all outside, it's very active, and it's all curriculum linked. So it was our role in the Peterborough Children's Water Festival that made us think about how we could combine the beautiful water education that the Peterborough Children's Water Festival and many water festivals across Ontario. We're not alone. There's quite a couple dozen of us around. How can we combine that with the beautiful structure that GreenUP has: teach, act, engage? Next slide, Karen. Thank you. So don't worry about all of this slide. It just gives you a general idea of where we started. And so we started by using this graphic logic model, which helped us envision the program and the many creeks and streams that are going to be part of what we were planning to do. In 2016, GreenUP and the Peterborough Children's Water Festival obtained funding for a 1-year pilot project. At that time, it allowed us to expand the water festival to take the magic of the festival into classrooms and expand it for JK2 grade 8. And so after the success of that program, we wanted to take it one step further, and we wanted to really expand the pillars we were using from GreenUP and include that action bit in there. We were depaving the community, we were planting all sorts of things, and it made us think, how can we do that with our water education programs and make a link? So we teamed up yet again and wrote a beautiful grant to Ontario Trillium Foundation. And to ground all this, and really what inspired us and allowed us to know that we were on the right track is an Ontario Ministry of Education framework entitled Acting Today, Shaping Tomorrow. Some of you are likely familiar with. And this framework identifies 3 mutually supportive pillars that increase sustainability, genders positive action. And so we use this as an evidence-based approach to continue moving our program forward. And so that was really the foundation that allowed us to then put our ideas together. Next slide. Thanks, Karen. So zooming in quite a lot at this point, the Ontario Trillium Foundation believed in our program and our vision and provided us funding to bring to life a program called the Wonders of Water, or what you will hear us call the WOW program. Who doesn't love a little 3-lettered word to use? So the WOW program is a 3-year hands-on educational program that teaches elementary aged youth about water ecology, usage, and conservation. And over the last 3 years, the program has demonstrated that a deep dive into water education and student-led action, combined with engagement that sustains through time, are an effective combination. And this is just a quick sample of some of the successes that we've had over the last 3 years that has led us to believe in its effectiveness. And so it's at this time that Karen and I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the many strengthened and created relationships that water or Nebe have fostered through this program.
Thank you, Heather. One of the ways that we wanted to do that was to also demonstrate how we really connect students with water and with the idea we are water, and also in a really celebratory way. And we can't do better than, and very fortunately, the recorded words of Elder Dorothy Taylor explaining this practice. So this is where, if you have a vessel already with water in it, we encourage you to bring that right in front of you, because Elder Dorothy is going to tell us one gratitude-filled way of sharing this with ourselves. And then also, this is a practice that we bring into classrooms or out onto schoolyards to share with students. I'm just going to do a new share here. This is about a minute long with Elder Dorothy. And Heather, I'll just get you to give me a thumbs up too if we do hear the volume through this one.
Absolutely.
Elders have said is that on a daily basis, show gratitude for the water. When you wake up in the morning even, and you go into the washroom, and you see your own reflection in that mirror, say hello to yourself in a good way. Hi, beautiful. I love you. Do that on a daily basis. And that first water that you drink in the morning, could be water, a glass of water, could be juice, coffee, tea, you know, take that water. Grandmother Josephine Mandamin was the one that taught us this one. She said, take that water in your left hand, raise it 4 times and say thank you. Miigwech, 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 miigwech. If you make that part of your everyday practice, water, you begin to fall in love with water. You begin to fall in love with yourself.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Karen, with all of us, and for those who lifted their water in gratitude. Zooming in a little bit further yet again, we wanted to kind of just go through with you a little bit about how we did what we did. Exactly what did we do in the classroom and in other spaces. So this, what I am calling an iceberg, although I recognize it looks more like candy corn, but for educational purposes, we're going to assume this is an iceberg. And what larger iceberg did this iceberg break from? Well, that would be GreenUP and the Peterborough Children's Water Festival. And the water around it that's allowing it to float are, funding from the Ontario Chilean Foundation, teachers and participants who supported the program and brought us into their classrooms, our connections and support from the school boards and the administrators is all kind of holding up this iceberg. And you can see there's two little baby icebergs that are kind of floating there with the large iceberg. And those are these kind of offshoots of what we've been able to do. So we were able to really provide a lot of outreach, get out in the community, talk about water to youth and to parents and to teachers. And we were also able to support a lot of peer-to-peer learning. That was really important to us. Like you heard in the video, Matthew was saying that students went to the festival and shared their learning through activities to other youth. And that was really important. And what is holding up the kind of what everyone saw, like what we really felt like the program was about, and what really helped to draw people in was the facilitated in-class education that we offered. And we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like here next. But underneath that, what maybe people didn't quite see a lot of, that wasn't, as popular on the website traffic, so to say, was these deeper dives and these actions. And that really supported what we were trying to do by spreading education. We really were trying to encourage people and youth and teachers to move past education and move that into action. And that was really our curiosity, was in that connection between education and action. And supporting all of that again was our bigger community. So we had a lot of community-led education. We have created 5 community education kits called H2O to go that anybody can, you don't have to be a professional educator, anyone, especially youth, can borrow these kits. And even in COVID, they're out now with families. There's a strict protocol of cleaning, and can then run a lot of these activities that we were running in classes at home with their friends in a safe way. And we also left behind a lot of elements that sustains this program in the future, like action plans with the schools that we worked deeply with, so that in the future teachers know what it was all about and why this garden is here at all. Next slide, please, Karen.
So one of the specific gifts of this was actually being able to do not 1, but 2 in-classroom visits, both to introduce some of the pillars of this education and to get really hands-on, whether it was in the classroom or out in the schoolyard, with fun and engaging activities. And then also to present students with challenges that were within their agency, which was incredibly important for us. Not that we were asking them to go home and ask their parents and trusted adults to do things, but things that they could actually manageably and attainably do. And then we would actually come back for a repeat visit, and we would celebrate with them the things that they had been able to do. We would challenge them to reflect on the knowledge that they'd gained from the first session, and also to make a little bit of a plan about how they could deepen this. And as you also saw, we would talk significantly about their love and connection to water, because we really do feel like this is a foundational base of environmental education. Not that we're introducing these big and significant themes, which needs to be woven in at age and stage appropriate levels, but also that we're really coming from a foundation of love and respect and reciprocity for water. And a great privilege of this for Matthew and I, when you see the number of like 5,000 students, so many of those we visited within Peterborough by bike. And so we were also in wind, rain, and snow able to model some of the foundations of GreenUP, and just giving kiddos a visible option when we rode in with our bike trailers of some of these possible and plausible actions. And Heather's going to talk to us a little bit about these deep learning retrofits as well.
Thanks, Karen. When we first shared the video, there was a question about COVID and were we able to, how did we pivot, and you know, did we have to do this in COVID? And that's such a great question. I'm just posting in our chat here a quick link on how we did that this time last year. So we weren't able, obviously, to go into classrooms anymore. Everyone was at home virtually learning. So we tried to engage with that. We weren't able to kind of be hosted live to kind of go through any of this model, but we did create some beautiful videos. We created some audio stories with worksheets that went along with them. We shared some activity centers from the festival that teachers could run virtually. And so you can see some of those in that link. So we were quite lucky to have been able to get a lot of our classroom visits in before that time, but then we continued a little bit of that as much as we could. So when it came to the deep dive and action, this is where we could really get our hands dirty. We worked with grades, I think, from 6 to 8. And we started by just having these deeper educational modules on water. You know, like Matthew said in the video, kind of talk to students about what they really like, what they know about water, internationally, locally, nationally. They really went in all kinds of directions, and we kind of let them play that out for themselves. And then we talked about, okay, well, we now have this foundation. We know all of these things about water. What can we do about it here in the school? And so students would kind of brainstorm and put together some ideas. And it was interesting to see as the conversations went, the direction that students took would talk a lot about, say, so at one school, there was a deck that we wanted to remove. The school and the school board were very supportive. It's a deck that was falling apart and students were fenced off. So it was this natural area that students couldn't access. And it was interesting to then try to have this conversation about, what does that have to do with water? Where are those connections with water? And it was interesting that no matter where the stories, no matter where the students led us, there was always a connection with water. We sometimes had to make that more explicit and kind of, take them along that journey a bit deeper to discover where that water was connected, but there was always a place for it. We then allowed the students to lead their retrofit. So once we narrowed in and worked with administrators and school boards and teachers and maintenance staff about what was possible and where that boundary was of reality, this picture here actually used to be a paved area, and we ran a program called Depave Paradise, which is a program of Green Communities Canada that we run here in Peterborough. And that was our first time doing a Depave Paradise project in a schoolyard, and it was amazing. And the students were so engaged with it, and we really helped. They helped us by taking the lead role. So they really decided what they wanted in that space after the asphalt was gone. They wanted to see what here you can see us putting in a rain garden, which is a form of green infrastructure that helps to soak water down into the ground. And they got to do the math. They had to figure out how big it was, how much water was coming off the roof through the down spout that was connected to it. So we got to incorporate a lot of different elements into the design and stretch that education further and deeper. And then, of course, the peer-to-peer learning. Here we saw these students be able to share on Depave Day what they were doing. They had a little outreach table set up. And so as parents and volunteers were coming through, they got to tell everybody about what they were doing, what they were learning, why we were doing this. And then again, they got to go take that to the Peterborough Children's Water Festival. And so we did 4 of these retrofits throughout the program. The other element that we wanted to ensure was that we wanted to recognize that education doesn't, happen only in the classroom. These are conversations that we want youth to be having everywhere. We want to talk about water at home. We want to talk about water at Girl Guides. We want to talk about water at Scouts. We want to talk about water, at daycare and all sorts of different places, at community events. And so we thought about how we can do that, how we can kind of miniaturize the activity centers that we were using at the festival and in classrooms, and give them wheels. So the best way for me to explain this concept is through this video that Karen's going to play for us. And Karen, I'll give you a thumbs up for audio.
GreenUP, your resource.
Thank you, Karen, for pressing play on that video. I think that really sums up what we're doing. And those are out in the community right now, even through COVID. And speaking of COVID, when we were doing the last final retrofit, planting that beautiful garden that you saw in the first video, we actually did that planting through COVID. So at no point was Karen or Matthew or me or anyone else on site. We did that all through COVID remotely. So,
and just to clarify that, Heather, so we had to go on site, but we had to go on site like plant ferries at like 6 in the morning to drop off the 400 plants so that students could then come with their sanitized tools that were all individually associated with them. So rich protocols, and I can't emphasize with that enough how the relationship that was already established with the school, with the principal, with the teachers, with the school board allowed those things to be yeses when at any moment they could have been no's. This was no small miracle. And we are so, so grateful for all of those relationships because we really had to lean into them. We had bought all of the plants. I'd ordered them on February 14th of the year before, not knowing that the context was going to shift so dramatically. And so we really needed folks to pivot and pirouette with us, and they did. Thank you, Heather. I'm going to jump you to that next slide.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. It was quite an ordeal to make that all happen. And so much gratitude for now having roots in the ground and students rooted in their minds. We wanted to leave you on a little bit of a share back. If you are able to share with us in the chat, questions are up next. So we want you to dedicate yourself to at least one of these sharings of opportunities and how you can have a closer relationship with water in the work that you're doing in your own lives. You can constantly be a student regardless of our age. We can also want to let administrators know, if you're an administrator on the call, it's really important and beneficial for us all to support these type of activities and encourage this type of work that allows us to connect in these ways. And we wanted to provide these examples of, if you just want to do a little, do a little. If you want to do a little more, do a little more. And Karen, if you want to go to the next slide, we wanted to just leave you with that beautiful song that Elder Dorothy Taylor shared, the Nimbe song, is here if you wanted to look at that. But I will share the Sacred Water Circle, which I'm a member of. Our website has all of the information on how you can also share that song in your life.
Wow, you ladies just knocked it out of the park. I so love all the layers, and you mentioned sort of zoom in and zoom out in terms of those concentric circles of impact and the iceberg or the candy corn. I like that analogy too. That was good. So this is a great time for us. It's 5:23. We have really 7 minutes left. I encourage you to ask with your mic. I know voices are really important, and so to find out, ask more clarification questions and such, and really tap the wisdom of the folks in the room. I'll actually start. In TDSB, you may have heard when we lost, unfortunately, a youth that went on a canoe trip at Algonquin Park. And so the water issue came up once again. And having been in the outdoor ed department, I was privy to many of the indoor conversations. And it got to the point where principals weren't allowing graduation events. This was pre-COVID. If the event was near water. So it was just getting out of hand. And so I'm really glad that you mentioned about the administrators and and protocol and just sort of connecting, how important it is to connect to virtual schools. What are your methods of communication with principals specifically?
And I can speak with that. Sorry, I'm also just noticing, and Maggie, I see that in the chat, and I will flash up that slide again as I answer the question. So really interestingly, and Pam, this very much relates back to experience with Ontario Eco Schools as well, is recognizing that really clear and reciprocal relationship, especially with administration. We know, as you do as educators, as scholars, administrators, that those principals really hold the keys to the castle in terms of access and content and also ongoing relationships. They also are in our boards rather, a bit of a revolving door. And so we need to make sure that there's that continuity of relationship past the 4-year tenure of those principals. So we try to ensure as much as we can that those communications are from the very beginning, and we're also required to. The communications for both school boards always go through the principals first. And so they will actually and often reach out. We'll also make direct calls and emails. We'll also, especially if principals are interested, ask for face-to-face engagement. Sometimes we bring cookies. These are busy folks, and they really need to hear from us that we recognize that this is, how can I say it, even if it's the most important thing for us and for students sometimes as they articulate themselves, it is an extra on top of what is an enormous portfolio for admin. And so keeping that relationship strong and honest and active is so vital. Also, and I confess, I absolutely lean into this, sometimes having principals communicate with each other. So if we've had a really successful retrofit, for example, who better to brag to a principal about it than another principal who has already said yes? And so they're absolutely our champions and our advocates in this program. And I can't say enough about the ones in this local area. They're extraordinary.
Wonderful. I see Emily or Amelie. I don't know the French pronunciation for Emily. But how do you get in contact with that elder in your area? How does that start?
That's such a great question. I can speak to that. So with Elder Dorothy Taylor, we have a pre-existing relationship. So GreenUP has been supportive with the Sacred Water Circle for many years. So Dorothy's been a dear friend of a lot of us for a while. She also has been a part of the Water Festival since its conception. Her father and her both really supported that work from the beginning. What we are grateful to is that Curve Lake First Nation is really powerfully involved in the community and really accepting and welcoming in conversations. And what you will find is that your First Nation will also likely be. So just start by having an open heart, an open mind, and open hands, and approach and talk and ask and start building a relationship. I think that's the key, is that you need to have a relationship that you're ongoingly build. It shouldn't be a, hey, can you come do this for us so we can check a box. It really needs to be an authentic relationship that you're constantly building and growing together. And also bringing elders in and knowledge holders in early, so that it's not at the end when you just want them to attend or perhaps, give their feedback. Start right in that beginning, right in the messy part where you don't think you really want to bring somebody in then. That's really when you need to bring them in and say, hey, we're thinking of doing this. What do you think? Is this helpful to what you're doing? Could we do something that's helpful to what you want to see being done in this community to help support and provide a voice?
Great. We do have Peggy from TRC was asking two things, but perhaps the both of you could put your emails in the chat, because I think, Peggy, we're going to have to get you to reach out to them off of the Zoom meeting. I have been given strict instructions to close these meetings on time. So it is 5:29 and I'm worried, but I really want to build on to your connecting with Elder Lorraine Johnson from a wonderful plant gardener. She started attending every powwow and every event in her area and built relationships there first. And then she was a trusted person. So we really need to do our homework as white settlers. And I am a white settler, so don't know the rest of you, but yes, I am. So I just want to speak from that point. I can't thank you enough of bringing your energy, your videos, your music, your connections with elders, the multifaceted way you have addressed this issue gives us so many ways of thinking how we can implement this in our own situation. So we are at 5:30. Hopefully the participants you've enjoyed today, and hopefully we'll see you at New River this evening. Bye for now, everyone.